my gray story.
Oh, okay, but we can do it on. We're live. Let me go live over on
Right.
Instagram. One moment.
This is the adult version.
The things that happen when the cameras go on.
That's right.
All right. Greetings, good people. We are back for the Grown and Sexy. We're calling this Coaching Conversations After Dark. Excuse me as I'm chewing. Um, so we were having such a good time, and some more questions came through. So we decided Kathy's going to watch the replay of the Oscars.
Yep. It's all right.
I'm going to have my apple slices because
I
I
already had my strawberries and my blueberries, so I
I
got
have
some
this
energy. Yep.
right. So
Yep.
I'm gonna pop in the question that came up. Hopefully
Okay.
it'll let me do that. I'm
Well,
still learning. I'm using StreamYard, you guys. So I'm still learning StreamYard. Some days it lets me post, some days it doesn't. I just started using LinkedIn, and I think because I have LinkedIn on here is why it's not letting me post. I would have to open them up separately. And so we'll figure that out another day. I'm going to post it over on my Instagram. I don't know if you can see that, Kathy, but I'm going to post the question and then I'll read it for you and let me know. I have some thoughts because I've experienced this personally. So let me post it out there.
okay.
All right. And then I'm going to ask you the question. I'm just going to read it from my phone. Okay. So the question came in says, I was listening to a conversation the other day. Can't remember who was talking about it. And I don't fully understand how it would work. But they were saying if you have a home equity line of credit and you put your paychecks into that and then pay your bills out of that, you actually will pay that off in 3 to 5 years, which seems kind of insane. How does that math?
Okay. All right. So we kind of started answering this earlier, and so I'm going to try and condense the answer to this. So, home equity line of credit is basically a credit card. The difference is that the percentage on the home equity line of credit is usually much lower than what you would pay on any credit card you own. So, it
Mhm.
is relevant to how you're, if you're eligible, right? Like you have to have good credit. If you if you don't have good credit, or if you have, I don't know what the percentage would be dependent upon your credit. Um, it is credit dependent. Let's say you get the home equity line of credit. So the concept around that is what you would do is you would take all of your other debt and pay for it out of the home equity line of credit. And by paying for all of your debt, then the goal is to only pay for everything out of the home equity line of credit and not use the credit cards. By not using the credit cards, A, this will help boost your credit rating. And then B, your interest rate on the home equity line of credit is always going to be at least 5 points less than what you're paying on your credit card. The other piece that is like some people may have a 24% credit card interest rates and get a home equity line of credit for 10%. So you're already saving 15% just by moving your debt over. The issue is you got to pay everything out of the home equity line of credit, and you can't use the credit cards at all. So you're causing yourself to live hyper within your means. And by doing that, yeah, you're going to have a big number at the beginning, but you should, by putting your entire paycheck in there and using the home equity line of credit to pay for your mortgage, to pay for your other bills, because you just get a checkbook out of there. The same thing is you're paying it down, but the interest rate at which you're paying everything is much more minimal. And so the theory is if you follow the rules, it will take you much less time because you can't use the credit cards. Like you almost have to cut up your credit cards to prevent you from using them.
So I have some feedback on this because I've actually I did not pay my bills out of it, but I did take out a home out equity line of credit and paid off all of my debt. I never heard about, paying, adding your paycheck and then paying everything out of it that way. I didn't do that. But what did happen when I did that, the market crashed, right?
Oh,
So this was right before the market crash, and I was in a situation where I could no longer afford um some things. Like the price of gas had gone up, all of those things. So I
yeah.
really no longer could afford my mortgage. So now I've taken this debt and I've included it in my mortgage. Or maybe I did it wrong. Because now that I think about it, you know what I did? I refinanced my house.
So you took equity out of the house, which would have changed your percentage on your mortgage and not taken a line of credit. But you also can't take a line of credit unless you have so much paid into your mortgage. I mean, like it's sort of this weird,
Had a lot of equity. I did refinance, but I think what I did was in the refinance, I borrowed a portion to pay off the debt
mm,
because that was still a lower interest rate than what I was paying on those credit cards. But
yeah.
then it was hokey because then you're refinancing some debt in there over 24, 30 years versus it only taking a few months to pay off or
Well, and
years to pay off the credit card.
here's the rub. If you're a spender and you don't pay off your credit card, this is a bad choice, right? Like we were talking about money story earlier and all this other stuff. You have to know your own habits. And whatever they are, they are. Like you can't all of a sudden say, I'm never gonna do that again. That's, what is it, Jerry Springer? Yeah, we've determined that's a lie. It's a lie, right? Like,
No, I think
it's,
that's Maury.
oh, that's Maury. Okay. But you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like pull the sign out. It's like that's a lie.
Right.
That's your child. Yes, it is your child. So here's the thing. The recommendation is to never put yourself in a position where you'll be destitute. And by that, I mean no house. You can't afford to get anything because now your credit is shit. You know what I mean? Like you kind of have to take in the whole picture before you just say, this will make my life easy. And it will in the short term, but in the long term, can you pay that off? So what they recommended when they say put your whole paycheck in there is
Uh-huh.
that let's say, let's say you get paid monthly and your net paycheck is $5,000 and the home equity line of credit payment is only $2,500. So you're paying an extra $2,500 against the home equity line of credit as a payment, and you're still incurring interest, and you still have to pay for other things. So the goal is to, you're putting all of your money in as if it were a bank account, and then you're paying pieces of it, other pieces of what you need to pay out. And at the same token, you have just paid off your credit cards in one lump sum.
I can see where that would still get you in the same. You're still in the
But
same
it's
situation.
a cycle of how you spend, and
Absolutely.
you have to be disciplined. And if that's not how you are, it's kind of hard to live up to that hype. Can it work? Sure. But that means, it's kind of like people who go on these extreme diets and stuff, right? I only eat this and I eat the same thing at 9 a.m. every day. And then I eat the same thing at 1 p.m. and then the same thing at 5 p.m. And then I have my snack at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
After a certain point in time, everything stops reacting the same way and your body rebels. And so it's the same with money. You rebel against that. You become disheartened. You become like really upset about that. Like, God, fucking A, man, I just want to be able to, not have debt. Getting out of debt is really, really hard.
Well, it can be.
It can be if it's deep. If it's deep debt, it's hard. And if you just, use the, what do they call the different types of snowballs? You could do the avalanche.
Well, let me interject here, because I've had severe debt, and I've paid all of my debt off except for student loans. And I did that in 2 ways.
Okay.
And so I'd love to share what I've done and what I know has worked for me. And if I ever got in debt again, I would do the same thing because I know that it works. So one of the things that I do with anything that I need to make payments on, especially if it's revolving credit and it has interest, any kind of installment loan, things like that, the interest typically accrues daily.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a 28-day cycle is typically what you will see.
Yep.
If you get paid bi-weekly, you can take that same amount that you would pay normally monthly. So I'm going to use a car payment as an example, because I've paid all my cars off this way. I don't maintain a car.
I actually know where you're headed with this, so I'm excited for this. Yeah.
Right. So what I would do, so say your car payment is $300 a month, and you get paid bi-weekly, the 15th and the 30th of the month. Now, sometimes you may have to pay ahead for this to really work for you. It just depends on when your payment falls, or you may need to change your payment due date. And so I would pay $150 on the 15th of the month, and then I would pay $150 on the 30th of the month, just so that it is before the payment is due. So then you're making 2 payments and you're cutting that interest in half, right? And if you continue to maintain that rhythm of payment, you do cut your interest in half, you pay it off sooner, you get to a point where when you're making those payments that they're actually starting to all be principal payments with no interest, right? And you pay it off sooner. You can also pay it off every week. You can take it and make it, instead of $150 each pay, $75 each week, and do the same thing. And then you cut it down even more. So that's one way that is tried and true.
Yeah, it's what they recommend with people who have very long-term mortgages, where you can take a 25-year mortgage and cut it by 10 years doing that method.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that too, where you can, if you're disciplined, but they count on you not being disciplined, you can just make one extra payment a year on your mortgage, and that'll also
do the same thing. Yeah.
But the
other thing to think about too, let's say I don't have a full mortgage payment, but I got maybe a quarter of a mortgage payment that I could do every month. Just do that every month. All you're doing is accelerating the payment of your debt. The HELOC question, though, that's right? Like the HELOC question requires discipline. It's really that simple. I would say Tiffany Aliche, who's the Budgetnista, she's really good at walking people through that process. I also...
So the other thing, if I can interject, so the other way that I paid off debt really works. And I don't know why. People either love or hate him. Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, he's controversial. He's controversial.
I don't mind Dave at all. He's a straight shooter. The snowball method is a really great method too. You know, you're already paying the debt, so you decide on pick whichever one. I think he normally does it by the lowest
interest rate,
right? So that way you get easy wins, because sometimes you need some wins when you going up this big mountain.
Yeah, so, if you're not seeing movement, that's the problem. If you're like, I'm doing what they told me to do and there's no movement happening and blah 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 blah.
Right. So the snowball works really good. You take whatever that lowest payment is, and you take all your extra money whatever extra that you're getting, maybe you're not eating steak every weekend.
Yeah.
And you're putting that extra money on that credit card debt to get that first one paid off. And then whatever that payment is that you were making on that credit card and whatever extra monies that you have, you start throwing it all to the next debt, because now you've got one paid off. So you're getting that momentum and you just keep going. I don't subscribe to the selling and paying everything. I don't mind. I'm a minimalist, so I don't keep a lot of stuff and all of that. But you don't necessarily have to sell every single thing, because I think that's another extreme.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's the point. Like, the extremes are not good because they're not sustainable,
Right.
and you're not developing the skill to be better at what you want to be better at. So there's a lot that goes into this. So I'll use myself as an example. When I was bankrupt, basically, I did not declare bankruptcy because I was able to, negotiate that with
Twice.
I haven't. I've come close, and I've managed to eke my way out of it. But the thing that I did is, with the credit card debt, is I paid the minimum payment, and I paid the interest payment at different times. And then if I had enough to pay the interest payment again, I would pay the interest payment again. It's very minimal. So, like, say you have $1,000 and
Mm-hmm.
you have $990 on your credit card.
Mm-hmm.
So your payment's $100, your interest is $25.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is I'd be like, okay, this week I can afford $25. So I'm going to pay the interest first. I'm going to pay my interest payment no matter what. And then I'm going to pay my $100 payment. And then I'm going to be like, oh, wait a minute. I have an extra $25. I'm going to pay the interest again. And then
Why
if I
do that?
It was a way for me to feel like I was in control of managing my debt. And it was affordable because they were small payments. And within like 3 months, I started getting more available credit on my credit card.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just need the small win, right? Like you were saying,
Right.
it doesn't have to be hundreds of dollars. Because some people are like, I can only afford the minimum payment. And I'm like, if you can stretch and pay the minimum and the interest, you're going to be great. Because if you're paying the minimum and the interest, you're offsetting the interest, so the interest doesn't count, and you're still reducing the debt by that minimum payment.
Yeah, man, it's very minimal. That's true. So I have another one.
Yeah.
I have another one that was a lifesaver and a game changer for me when I learned this. I used to have a lot of medical bills. And so that was really like stressing me out. And what I learned was to allow them to go to collections,
Mm-hmm.
and then make my payments. Then I can make my payment however I want, as long as I want, because as long as you're paying it to collections, it never goes to collections. And you can continue to.
There's another thing that I've seen as well, where if it goes to collections, there's no signed agreement between you and the collections company. So you never admit that it's your collection, and you say, I need you to send me all the documentation that states that this is my collection, because I don't agree with that. And if they can't provide you that within a certain time period, then they have to write it off.
Yeah.
And so they lose the money, and then your credit bounces back because your collection is no longer on your credit.
I've heard that. I have challenged it when I've actually had a challenge.
Yeah.
I would not make that a habit or a practice, because you do want to pay bills that you do owe. But what does happen is it comes away from the hospital or whatever medical facility they take it off their books, right? Because they've sold it to the collection agency or what have you. And so then you no longer run the risk of it being on your credit by that hospital, what have you. Now I did, when I tell you I did this for years, like maybe 20 years.
When I said that my parents had medical bills, my not to get macabre, but it is after dark. My brother passed away when I was 11, and he had cancer for 2.5 years. And so my parents had medical bills out the wazoo for that. And my mother paid $10 a week for years. I want to say like 10, 12 years.
And that's all I would pay. I would be consistent. I didn't even pay it weekly. I paid it monthly.
Well, and some weeks she couldn't pay it, but she would ultimately pay what she could afford. Because that happened to me once too, when I had a loan or something, and they're like, "We need you to pay all of this right now." I'm like, "I don't have the money." They're like, "Well, how much can you pay?" And I said, $25 a month. And they're like, "Well, we need it to be this." And I'm like, "I can give you 25, or I can give you nothing. So you tell me which you would prefer, and we'll go from there."
Yep.
And when they said, "Well, I guess 25 will be enough," I'm like, "Okay." And I was like you, I was consistent with it. But the key is, and I do agree with you on this. Some people don't, but I do. It is a debt that you incurred. It is something that you should pay for.
Mm-hmm.
The people, especially with medical debt, because it is true, there are a lot of people that are one medical debt away from bankruptcy. The thing of it is just pay the little bit that you can pay. Don't get crazy. If you say to them, "I can't pay $10," or and even if you pay $10 a month directly to the hospital, they're not going to send you to collections.
Well, they do send you to collections because they can only carry it for, I think, 90 days.
Oh, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. So that's why you end up getting sent to collections.
Yeah. I mean,
that could have changed because that's been 10 years ago. So the last time that I was in that situation.
I mean, I'm paying a medical debt right now, so I don't know who it's with anymore, but I don't know what the timing was on that. But it is like, it's sort of like, there might be an ethical piece to this for some people. For some people, they don't care, and that's okay. Good for you. The problem is once something goes as such a strong ding against your credit, then your credit just tanks, and it can take 100 points in like 2 months. So you got to be careful, because your credit determines what's going to happen for you. Your interest rates on everything go down. And it's not just credit cards. It's insurance. It's all these other things, like a car, a house, all these other things that you may not have an opportunity to live with parents. Your parents may not be around anymore, so there's all those things that mentally you kind of have to go, okay, what's my priority? Am I okay with having a crappy credit score, or can I afford to spend $10 a month?
And I think it's a layer beneath that.
Yeah.
I believe in karma. So you're going to get out what you put in. So
yeah,
if you continue to have that kind of habit, knowing that you don't have good intentions, then you're probably always going to struggle. But if you do things with the right intent, because that's what everyone is looking at, that's what God looks at, or whoever your higher power is, or whomever you're dealing with, when they're looking at your character, they're looking at your intent.
Yeah.
So if your intent is to be deceitful and to not, to take on debt and things of that nature with the intent of never paying because you can get over, that's not the way to go. you're not going to have a financially sound life doing that.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say pick your battles. I like the quote that you gave us when we were being good in the coaching conversation when you said don't let urgency of today dictate where you want to be in the future.
Yeah.
So you got to think about the long game and the downstream effects of
Yeah. It's chess. It's not checkers, you
that's
know? Yeah. So, but it's, it is, I love how you'll see the influencers on like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff. And I think a lot of these folks know a lot about what they're talking about because they've either experienced it or they've
I
helped
hope so.
people through it.
I hope
And
so.
yeah, I mean, you hope so for sure. And I agree that there's probably validity. It's just so in a vacuum that it's like taxes. Taxes around your business are only one piece. You've got your personal taxes, and then you got to take it all into consideration, and then you know what you owe, or then you know what you're going to get back.
Right.
It can't be one or the other. They have to be taken in conjunction with each other, and that's the thing. I wish it was in like its own, cylinder, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. You bring
So
up the point.
you just got to be careful. Um, yeah, that was. I was gonna say something about it earlier when we were chatting about business owners and things they should know and stuff like that. I'm changing the topic.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there was. I had it written down. I can't find where. That's how my brain is right now.
Mhm.
Because it's after dark. I don't have to think.
Right. Hey, we're not politically correct. This is for the grown and sexy.
That's right. So, for the grown and sexy, understand money doesn't give a shit about you. See this piece of paper? This could be money. That's all money is a piece of paper. The emotion that comes up with that is yours. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with anything. This country used to be barter. When you walked in to the trading posts and stuff like that,
Right.
you had something to trade. Money is just a form of trade. So you got to be careful, and the value that you give it is the trade or the receipt of what you want. That's what money is. It has
Mm.
nothing to do with that. And so, because one of the things that came up in one of the conversations was like fear, embarrassment, blah, blah, blah. Right.
So what about that? But I can see where there could be a lot of guilt and shame around.
Well, here's a good one. Here's a good one. This happened in one of my squad calls a couple weeks ago. One of the
Mhm.
folks on the call was going through their sales process and talked to somebody and said, and was afraid to say this number because it was the first time that they had asked somebody for that number. And we'll just
Okay.
say like $5,000.
Mhm.
And they were providing a coaching program. This person was sold, right? And they're like, how much is it? And they are like $5,000. And their heart is palpitating and they're like sweating. And the person's like, okay, where do I send the money? And then they're like, fuck. And I'm like, yep, you undercharged yourself. And they're
Right.
like, now what do I do? I'm like, you know that your sales process works. You now have data. And the next time you charge $7,500. That's what you do. So all of us go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who has transitioned from employee to business owner goes through I don't know. I would say 95% of that is women that go through that more so. Men have an inflated sense of self, in my experience. So I have 7 brothers. I think it's just, personal experience. Yep, you get it. You know what I'm talking about. So, but I think women haven't been taught that. Men have been taught that from birth, whereas women haven't been taught that. And I think it's important to normalize the fact that you're going to question how much you should be paid. And even if we go back to Rachel Rogers, who we both know, you're qualified. You have to be confident. She doesn't say you have to be confident, but she's right. You're qualified. You wouldn't be able to start this business if you weren't qualified. I would add, you just need the confidence.
Right.
If you don't have the confidence in what you're asking for or what you're selling, then it's hard to give a number. Because the first time I gave a number, I gave myself what I thought was a pay raise. Granted, this is 20 years ago, so everybody just step back for a second. And I asked for, I think, like $25 an hour.
Okay.
Before that, I was making $13.50 an hour. So I'm like, man, I just gave myself almost a double pay raise.
Right.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You got to pay for shit. You get, like, all of a sudden you got to pay for all these other pieces, whereas that was paid for by the company. Just adding your own health insurance, all that stuff.
So what I hear then is you didn't run the numbers first. You just gave a number.
No, I was like, I had just been fired.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have any experience. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And I didn't realize $100,000 as a new solo entrepreneurial business is not a lot of money.
Right.
After all is said and done, you're probably going to make about $25,000 as after all the expenses and everything, you're probably going to make about 25 grand to cover everything else that doesn't include the business.
Right.
Mortgage, rent, food, clothing. Like, even if you just go for the basics, right? Food, clothing, and shelter, $25,000 in 1 year isn't going to cut it. It may, if you live in a very rural area. Here in Chicago, nope.
Not so much.
No. So it's everything is like interwoven, interconnected, and some, and it's a meme for a reason, but it's true. Know your worth and then add tax.
Right? I feel that.
Yeah. So I want to, this day and age, I'd be like, if I were to be paid hourly, I don't think I would allow anyone to pay me less than $250 an hour. I've got way too much time and knowledge in the game on both sides of the fence. No. So I'm more lawyer prices now at this stage in my life.
Right.
15 years ago, junior associate. You know what I mean? It'd be like, all right, 125, 150. So, but it just changes. You do get more confident because you know your stuff. And this is the only thing you do. And nobody can tell me I'm not good at what I do.
Right. I've never had that issue asking for my worth and knowing my value.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where, I've had the issue of low confidence, but not from a financial perspective, because I felt like I was always operating in my masculine. Money tends to be more masculine from what I understand. Mm-hmm. And so I've never had that. I've always, when I didn't feel that I was being paid what I was worth, I took my toys and I went somewhere else where I was valued. And so that's just the game that I kind of played.
That was a job, though.
Right.
Right. And as an owner, has the same thing happened for you?
Very much so.
Okay.
When so I was co-founder in a barbecue catering business with my ex. And I knew the value of what we were bringing. The family had been in business for 75 years. I think at that time, maybe, yeah, I think about 75 years or something in 70 range. And they were, a barbecue joint. And we were focused on turning it into a conglomerate,
Okay.
right? Making the legacy really be more of a legacy, streamlining it, making it a brand, getting the branding, the marketing, and all of the things together. And so he was used to kind of, backdoor deals and all of the things. And it's like, no, we're gonna build the foundation first. And wanting to kind of just charge whatever. And it's like, no, we're going to really look at the value and the time and the effort and the energy that it takes to do and create these things. And the other thing that we were doing is I was going vegan. And so we were using better quality ingredients, primarily organic. And we were making healthy swap versions of those ingredients. So that's going to cost you a little bit more,
Yep.
than what we were paying before, because you could have just used any old product, and all of those things. So all of those things had to come into play, and so I recognize that. So there was always this kind of tug of like, I know that's what you used to, but we're not doing it this way. We need to do it this way if this is what we want. If we want to offer a quality product. And so I always kind of fought for that to and I never the other thing I would say is I didn't play that game with bartering for
Service.
not in that way. If you could not afford the price, then you just could not afford the price, but this is the price.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did barter a lot in the very beginning because I was actually accustomed to that. I was kind of raised on that a little bit. And I had a very valuable tool at my disposal. So I actually I didn't barter a lot of my bookkeeping. In the very, very beginning, when I had left the wine company, I had over 10 cases of wine. So I would barter wine for service. So people were like, heck yeah. Because I worked for a pretty popular wine company that everybody knew, and they knew it was high value wine. Right. So I would barter it at the value of the retail of the wine, right? So there were times where I'd barter a $150 bottle of wine for 3-4 hours of service. So it was very different. The cool thing was the exposure in the wine company is what made me so much less fearful of being near and around high ticket, large sums of money. Like that never bothered me. Right. And so, yeah.
I think this is a good area to talk about some of the things that if you are feeling that kind of way where you don't have the confidence, you can do a proof of concept, right? So you can accept the lower value, but know that you're doing it for a reason. Also, when you're doing that, ask for the testimonials, right?
Get the data.
You're getting the testimonials, you're getting the data, whether or not you need to improve the process, if it's really going to work, whether you like it or not. If you really want to do this, where you need to make your tweaks. And then the next customer that you get, you double the price. Because now you've got testimonials. Now that you know that it works, now you build up
Yeah.
your confidence.
You're
Then you
getting,
double the price.
it was interesting because like today I was on another call before we started chatting, and one of the people had they had an event earlier this week, got really good feedback. I was at the event. I'm like, oh my God, this is really great. Right. And they're like, and they recorded it. So it was a Zoom, a lot of people involved, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, I'm thinking about selling it. And I'm curious because there were a group of us, and I think 4 of us were on that call. Well, it was multiple calls, but it was sort of like a series. And so they're like, what would you guys pay?
Was this the
Yeah, I don't know if she wants us to say anything, so
okay.
I don't want to give out the name or anything like that.
Right.
But it was really interesting because their community does not include white. They love their white allies, but it is not specifically for white people. It is for the BIPOC community.
I love that.
And what I loved about it is the white folks in the room were, yeah, I'd pay upward. I would, for the whole thing, I'd pay max $297. And the BIPOC people in the room said I would pay max $99.
Right.
And I was like, interesting how the value, because it was split. I think there were four of us, so it was 2 and 2. And I'm like, well, the white people have said this, but let's ask the BIPOC people because it's a different. You have to understand who you're talking to as well, and you have to ask the people that you're asking to purchase from you how much they're going to pay.
Right.
So when you look at data, it's really good to know who you're selling to and what's their max load as an easy payment. Like all of this is, and it's really great material, and you know it's great material, and you've tested it out, and it's sort of like an entry level purchase. And I'm like, okay, well, as a low hanging fruit, yeah, that's a great low hanging fruit number.
If I feel it's a great low hanging fruit number, if
they're not trying to like massively benefit off of it, they're not trying to like break the bank with the sale of it. They're trying to get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
However, though, I think the key thing there, though, is if it's still not a stretch, then the value isn't perceived to be there. And
well, I don't think that they wanted it a stretch, but they also didn't want it cheap. So at $99, $100, it's not a stretch, but it's not that $47, $17, $27, $9 entry level. So it's beyond entry and not, bump price.
Well, the other thing I think is the most important piece of it is the value, right? What is the perceived value? Because
like I said, I would easily pay $297 max, but I know what the value is.
Exactly. And that's the key, how you're communicating the value. Because
the difference is I'm not the target market. So you also have to take into consideration your target market. Because if your target can't get in there, then you're not selling, your passion is being put to the wayside for the almighty dollar. And does that align with your personal values?
Well, I think that I think that depends, right? Because what they may realize is that really the target market, right? How niche are they?
They are,
right?
They're niche, very niche in that market. Like it's in the heading of things that they do. Like we love our white allies. We are a BIPOC company. We serve BIPOC people. So not, it's the same thing in the gay community, right? Like we love our allies, but there's certain stuff that we're going to say and do that you will never understand.
Right.
And we appreciate that you're there and you're supporting. And at the same token, it's just not for you.
Right.
And that's okay, because we can still be allies without everything having to be for each one of us.
Right. Right. Well, I wish much success. That was I enjoyed that.
I think she's going to do great. I think she's going to hit the level that she wants to hit based upon the feedback that came through that I saw. I think she's going to do great. So, but yeah, that's another piece that I was thinking about is you really, really, really have to know who your audience is. And, they call it an ICA, your ideal client avatar, but who are you selling to? Because if you're selling to John and you really want to sell to Jane, and Jane is the one that is going to benefit, and Jane's going to do the work that you want Jane to do, you can talk to John. I'm not going to say no to a conversation. And John's going to have to understand that everything around this conversation is centered on Jane's perspective.
And that happens.
Yeah.
That definitely happens because they recognize the value.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I could see that. Let me see if I got some questions that didn't get answered. This is a good one. In today's digital age, what role do you see technology playing in managing finances for small businesses, and what tools or platforms do you recommend?
Okay. I am biased. Start right there.
I already know where that's going.
Yep. I mean, I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. That's where that's where I focus. I think Xero as an entry level is really good. I think Wave apps are really good for invoicing and collection of revenue. I don't know how robust the reporting systems are. So I'm a little untrustworthy of that because it's more of a CRM from my perspective versus an actual accounting and reporting functionality. There have been a couple of others that are out there. I just saw one called Finally. This is a new one that's coming up. Okay. Finally is based upon them. It's basically, this drives me nuts. They've created a call center, for lack of a better term, for bookkeepers and accountants who use either QuickBooks or Xero. But they're billing it as your full accounting support system. We know somebody in common who does the 5-minute bookkeeper, and I think that is a really good platform in its space.
I like it. When I saw that, I was like, "Holy Toledo, Batman!"
Yeah, it's really good, and there's some other, like, I don't know if she has levels. The only level I've seen is more the entry level. And the entry level is great, especially for new owners who have a fear of numbers, who really don't know what they're doing and need something quick, simple, and easy.
Right.
The way I understand it is the caveat is 5-minute bookkeeper means you, as in me or you, actually need to spend 5 minutes every day doing the work. So yes, you can do it in 5 minutes a day, but I do my personal QuickBooks accounting. I do that in 5 to 10 minutes a day because I'm in it every day and I'm familiar with it.
This is no joke though. Woof.
Well, there's another one called Sage, which is actually at the time QuickBooks came out, it was an answer to Sage because Sage was no joke and still is no joke.
I never heard of that.
And that's it used to be called Peachtree Accounting, and now it's called Sage because they were bought by a larger organization.
Okay.
In certain areas, QuickBooks is starting to price themselves out. They're constantly playing around with their rates, and I'm like, dude, people are going to stop. You may be the name everyone recognizes, but when they got to figure that stuff out, it's like,
because ain't nothing quick about them books. That's what I'm saying.
It's, you know what though? When you probably first started learning Wave, it wasn't quick either.
Wave was really easy. But Wave was easy for me because I cut my teeth on QuickBooks. I paid someone over $2,000 to set up my QuickBooks because I had screwed it up. One thing that I did, people.
I will say that was probably $1,500 more than you needed to spend.
Well, it was my fault. What I didn't know, I had mixed my personal accounts and my business accounts, thinking I could manage them all in QuickBooks.
No.
So she had to unravel all of the things. So that's what happened. So yeah, she charged me $2,000. That was maybe 5-6 years ago.
It probably could have been done for less.
I wish I knew you then.
I know, right?
Because
I feel like
I was sick over that money.
Yeah, it's different. Like the guy I told you about, where I ended up saving him $60,000 on his taxes.
You saved him $60,000 and he still did a chargeback on you?
No, different guy. We're still working together. He's gonna start paying. I think we're gonna raise his rates soon. No, he's great. He was just like pissed because he's like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, well, that's what the numbers say. I'm like, are you aware? Did you know? Did you ever review this? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, that's your fault. That's, and then his accountant had a very traditional Chicago name, like Joey, right? He's like, Joey. He's like, he's probably my age or older. And I'm like, what's your name? And he's like, Joey. And I'm like, like, all right, Joey, here's the deal. And it was one of Joey's employees who made the mistake. And so Joey was pissed too. And I was like, look, I'm not here to get somebody into trouble. I'm just telling you there's a big mistake. And nobody caught it till now. That's the problem. So.
And this is the one that he overpaid on his taxes, right?
Yeah, he overpaid $60,000.
Wow.
Which is good because he can restate and then get the credit and have it apply to this year. But it's bad because he's got to restate and get the credit applied to this year and then submit it. You know what I mean? Like it's a double-edged sword. So
I have a question that comes to mind as I think about it. I don't do my own taxes because
no.
It gives me a headache.
Once you can afford it, go to an accountant. Let them help you ask all the questions.
I have a friend that has been doing my taxes for 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped using them when I first started the business in Vegas because I wanted to get the lay of the land, make sure I had the thing and all that. But this is my question where I feel like I never know the answer to this. When are business taxes due? Because aren't there 2 different due dates?
So there's many due dates.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So
then there's that.
Yeah. Specifically for business taxes, depending upon how large your business is, you're probably going to be paying quarterly taxes. So you're making an estimated payment based upon what you paid for the prior year. So simple math. Let's say your taxable income last year was $20,000 that you had to pay tax on. So every quarter this year, you would have to pay. So you take 20,000, divide that by 4, that comes to 5,000. So every 3 months so the quarter is January to March.
Do you have to pay it quarterly?
You don't have to. But when you submit your taxes, technically you should be able to pay for all the taxes at that point. You can send in an estimated payment every month. You could say, I'm going to send in $200 of estimated payments every month. Your accountant should be able to give you that number based upon your last tax period.
Okay.
So technically it's April 15, July 15, October 15,
Mm-hmm.
January 15. So they give you 15 days after the quarter ends to make the payment. I always recommend, especially on the last quarter, I'm like, just pay because it will be less confusing when it comes time to run reports and everything.
Oh, right.
If you can, pay it by December 31, if you can't, understandable, because these are estimates. You're not saying this is how much I owe in tax. What you are saying is I'm going to make an estimated payment based upon what I did last year. And the government is going to assume you're going to be flat to last year. So they're like, okay, well, you know what? We'll take that in. And then at the end of the year, you may be in a position where you might have overpaid.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you underpaid, that payment goes from like 20,000 down to, $500 or something like that. So it also helps to offset the big payment that's supposed to go in with your tax return.
Okay.
So,
I can see that.
yeah. So
Added to pay. So do you recommend, how do you recommend, I saw somewhere where someone was recommending setting up different bank accounts.
that's the profit first method.
Okay.
Profit first is a pretty name for grandma's envelopes.
I like it.
So
But you do it with accounts.
Yeah, so all your money that you get paid by anybody goes into one bank account. That's your income account.
Income account. Okay.
Then you have the operating account. That's all the bills you got to pay. Then you have the tax account. So you put every month, you're putting aside what you would have to pay on taxes for the profit for that month. Then you have the owner, right? Is that what it's called? Hang on one second. I'm going to look at somebody's books while we talk about this.
Okay.
Right. So I said tax, profit, operating, income, and then the owner draw. So anything that's left over gets put into that. So that's the money you should be able to keep tax free.
What's the income account? Is that considered a profit?
It's just the income. So income is what your business makes. So when you look at a profit and loss statement, the very top line is your income.
Okay.
Then you have all your expenses. And then, so your income subtracts all your expenses, and then you have your profit.
Okay.
The owner amount is based upon the profit. So everything is based upon what the profit is for each given month.
Now the owner account though would be the salary that the owner is making, or what?
Yeah, so some people call it a draw. And so be careful when you say the word salary, because in my brain, salary means actual payroll and not you just pulling cash from the bank account. So if you're paying yourself payroll, that's different, as an employee of the company, as opposed to just drawing money out of the account as you draw it.
What's the difference?
When you pay yourself a payroll, your taxes are being taken out as it's just like you're an employee of your own company.
Right.
So you're going to pay yourself a salary, let's just say, and it's definitely a discussion to have with an accountant, because you probably just want to pay yourself a reasonable salary, not like I'm a baller salary.
Right.
So you would pay yourself maybe like 30, 40,000 a year.
Right.
And so that money is already taxed because payroll taxes are being taken out.
Okay.
When you pay yourself a salary, that means your revenue is in the right position to be able to afford that. And it also means that the profit might be a little lower. But if the profit's lower, then the tax payment you make to the government is also lower.
Lower. Okay.
And you have to be careful in how that fluctuates, because if it fluctuates too much, you might open yourself up for audit.
Red flag. Okay.
Yeah, you red flag yourself. And then if it fluctuates too much, you really haven't learned how to spend your money. So that's an indicator to yourself, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have gone to payroll yet. So that's where I would always say, if you're thinking about going to payroll, talk to your accountant and ask them, am I in a position, this year, next year? And they're going to have this list of questions of how much did you make? What was your profit?
Okay.
Can you afford it? Because you're not only paying the payroll, there's payroll taxes. So me as an employee, I have federal withholding, Social Security, Medicare, and then state withholding.
Okay.
And then as the business, I have to match the state or the Social Security and Medicare. And then as the business, I also have to pay unemployment, federal and state level.
Okay.
And so I pay you $45,000, but you get a net check of $40,000. So what I'm saying is that I held that $5,000 as the business, so I have to pay that $5,000 plus the extra for Social Security and Medicare, plus the unemployment, plus the unemployment. So it's usually payroll and then 10% of what that payroll amount is.
Okay.
So that's what you'd be looking at from a numbers standpoint. And then the other considerations are benefits. So at that point, are you, what are the rules around like 401k plans? What are the rules around health insurance? Like it's a whole thing.
What is there? What is the rule of thumb? Like, at what point can you offer benefits to employees? Like, when you think about the growth scale, where are you on the growth scale when you can realistically offer your employees benefits? Is there?
Okay. I don't know how much you talk about the growth scale on your thing. But I think when your business is making gross, so your revenue is around 250,000, that's
Right.
probably when you're looking to hire employees.
Okay.
So if you want to start benefits right away, great. Determine what they are, have infrastructure in place. And what I mean by that is your operational book, like this is how we do it. When somebody is employed, here's your employment contract. This is what's available to you. After 90 days of work, we give you the option to sign up for a 401k. After 30 days of work, we give you the option to sign up for health insurance, and we pay this percentage and you pay that percentage, or we pay 100% and you pay nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take into consideration what all that expense is. And then the other piece I always tell people is, even if you're hiring somebody,
Mm-hmm.
they probably are not going to pay for their position in whatever capacity for at least 3 months, because you've got to teach them everything. You got to train them. You got to get them ramped up, which means that you have to kind of ramp down in order to ramp them up. But then ultimately you can do more in different areas of the business
once they are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's usually going to be a state of flux. So it might be good to say, okay, if I was going to pay somebody, what is it? Like, I'm trying to think of an easy number to divide by 12, $60,000. So I'm going to pay somebody $5,000 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you figure $5,000 plus 10%, which is $500. So that's my payroll tax. That's $5,500. Now I'm going to pay I'm going to give them a $500 stipend for health insurance. Go buy your own, but I'm going to pay 500 of it. So now I'm paying 6,000 a month. Now, am I going to offer a 401k? And what kind of plan? And am I doing matching? But I still have to manage that process. So I have to be clear on what I want to do.
Right.
So that's another percentage. It usually doesn't go more than 3%. So 3%. So that's another $150, right? 5,000 times 0.03. So
okay.
50, yeah. So I mean, so now it gets really heady, right? Now you're like, okay, so I'm now at 6,150 a month, just for one person.
Yeah.
Because I want to, like, I believe in doing the right thing and paying people and giving them insurance and giving them this, right?
Right. Especially if they're going to help you bring your vision to life.
Yeah. And then that's when the question comes into play is, do I need to pay myself a salary? Probably not. I'm probably going to pay this person the salary and put that, and just know how much I'm going to take as a draw for myself every month. But, or I should say, and I have to know that I have $6,100 a month for at least the next 3 months that's going to be in or coming in to cover that cost.
Right.
In addition to all of my other expenses for the business that I pay in a monthly, like just as a run rate.
Right.
So it's very simple math. It's also very telling, right? So if I'm bringing in 20,000 a month and my profit is, let's just say I have an online business because it's the easiest. Let's just say 20,000 a month and I'm bringing in 15 grand, or I'm netting 15 grand. So my profit's 15 grand.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 6,150 I can afford. What if I'm only profiting 5,500? Do I have money in savings? Can I afford to do that? If I lose a client, is that going to impact this? And can I not do that anymore? Will I have to fire them?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
What are some common things that you see that you have to help small businesses with? What are those?
Understanding the financial reports, understanding what they mean, what they tell you.
What's the number one thing you want them to know about the reports?
You need to look at them every month. You need to, yeah. Because you can spot trends. It's like anything, right? It's a habit. You're building a skill. Every month you look at, and you might just be like, yep, there they are. And you turn it over. That happens. It's like, okay.
So which reports are you looking at? So there's the balance
sheet, and I'm also looking at the profit and loss statement.
And then loss. Just those two?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. Those tell the complete story.
Okay.
Think of it as a tub of water. The balance sheet is all the water in the tub. The profit and loss statement is if I were to take a cup of water and pull it out, I'm just looking at what's in the cup. So the first thing I would say is, after 2 months in business, the profit number at the bottom of your profit and loss does not, will not, cannot equal your bank balance.
Would you say after the first 3 months?
After the first two.
After the first 2 months?
The first month it usually does. After that, it doesn't. If you're recording your accounting properly. Yeah.
And so most people expect it to always balance. Is that what or match?
I mean, I've had a lot of people, they look really profitable. They're like, well, I don't have $10,000 in my bank account. I'm like, no, you don't, because you pulled $2,000 to put into your personal account. that doesn't show up on a profit and loss statement. You paid part of the credit card. That payment doesn't show up on a profit and loss statement. The activity does, but not the payment. The payment pays off the debt, and the debt is on the balance sheet.
Gotcha.
So same thing with a line of credit. Same thing with a loan. You can claim the interest on the loan, but the principal is on the balance sheet. It's not on the profit and loss statement. And I think a lot of people don't recognize it's double dipping if you do it all on the profit and loss statement. You got to do the payments and everything go on the balance sheet. The activity goes on the profit and loss statement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Payments, balance, activity, profit and loss.
Yeah.
I'm
For the most part.
P&L, balance sheet. Taking notes for myself. Okay.
Yeah. And it takes time to learn this. It took me a couple years just to learn how to do journal entries properly.
Woo, Lord. My mother was complaining about her ledger. She still writes checks for everything. This conversation was just today. And she was pissed because they went up on the price of the checks, one, and then they don't send a ledger with the checks anymore. They don't send.
Ooh, yeah. I would be upset about that too.
Yes, I said, well, you got all these notebooks around here. Just make your own ledger.
I bet that went over really well. Yeah.
Like you only need 3 or 4 columns. Make your own ledger.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a dig on her. She's supposed to be writing her book, and I bought her all these notebooks to just write in so that she could get it all out of her head. She's only used 1.5, a half of one rather. So it was a dig. It was like you could take those and use your ledger since you ain't writing the book. But yeah.
Well, she may surprise you. You never know.
Hey, I would be surprised. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about it for a few years now. But this was a really good conversation. It's going on 10 o'clock my time.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to cut out pretty soon.
Yeah, I need to go get my beauty rest so I can be bright and bushy-eyed in the morning.
I love it. Love it.
This entrepreneurial thing, I'm starting my, getting my schedule together on how I'm showing up in this business. So.
Yeah, it's a lot. I've been doing this forever, and I still have a hard time showing up sometimes. I'm just like, I'm tired. I know.
I am definitely still tired. Yeah, I've been on vacation. I just got back on Saturday.
That's nice.
So, yeah, I'm still kind of off. I'm not in full swing. I'm giving myself March 31st. I have a clear vision workshop going on.
That'll be fun.
My automated vision tracker to the world.
That's cool.
That good stuff. So you all, if you don't know, check it out. I'm advertising it every day. It is a paid workshop. It is not free.
Yeah.
You go with crystal clear vision. If you're stuck and you don't know how to get started, it helps you define your true why. And what's automated about it is it helps you really understand what it really costs to live the life that you really want to live.
Yeah.
The dreams that you have, we run the numbers, you get the real numbers, how much you need to make monthly to be able to do that. We identify money generating ideas to be able to do that, and how much of that you need to make as you're talking about with those numbers. So it's a really great workshop. I think it provides a ton of value for folks to then not just be guessing and letting it run around in your head, have the numbers and you can.
So where can I sign up? What's the web address? Where's the link?
You can sign up anywhere that you find me. Instagram, there's a link. It is called Clear Vision Workshop.
Okay.
And we're doing it Sunday, March 31st, again, 7 p.m. Eastern. So it's replacing the coaching conversations. We're going to have a clear vision. Yep. And it's a 90-minute workshop. You leave with the vision tracker, and also you get a vision bingo card that helps you track your long and short-term goals. So I love it because it and actually, where's mine? I can show you mine.
And if the people want to know how much it costs, you want to tell them?
Sure, it's $197.
Okay.
$197, and it's something that you will come back to and use again and again and again. When you have another project and you feel like, okay, I'm in a different space, let me run some different numbers. So this is a tool that that you will find yourself leveraging again and again and again. Where's my vision bingo? Oh, you know what? I was traveling and it's down in my suitcase. I took it with me. But when you click the link,
yeah,
you will see it. There's a picture of it. We track your long and short-term goals, and we do all that on the call. It's a workshop. So you go away with all of the filled in, crystal clear.
I love it.
Clear vision. It used to be called the Strategic Vision Workshop, but now it's called the Crystal Clear
Now
Workshop.
we're just getting crystal clear.
We're getting crystal
no
clear.
more strategery on my spot.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely will get some strategy, but things will be so clear you'll know how to get started. You won't feel stuck. And if you do still feel stuck, then you just hire me as your business coach to help you lay the foundation for your business and be off to the races.
There you go.
There we go.
Done and dusted. There you go.
Yes. Kathy, my dear, this has been amazeballs. I've really enjoyed this time with you. We got to do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to do another. We'll have to try and get some more coaching conversations after dark. That'll be fun.
Absolutely. We could probably manage that. We probably need to do it on like a Friday night versus a Sunday.
Wow. Let's just do it on a Friday.
Any other words for the people or questions for me before we go?
Words for the people. It's not going to be solved in a day. Take one step and know that you're going to be embarrassed and you're going to be fearful, and it's going to require some courage to get through that.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to do it alone. It's important to know that people will help you. Just find the right people to help you. And then for you, Selena, I don't really have any questions. I feel like we've laid ourselves bare tonight. So I feel good.
This was good. Thank you. And you birthed something new. Coaching Conversations After Dark.
Hey, man.
Hey.
You can trademark that.
Why, thank you. I'm going to do that. This has been a blast. Well, as you all know, my good people, my disruptors, if you've hung in there and you've listened to the end, I love you. Until next time, be good. And if
we do the heart. Wait, we do the old lady heart, and then we do what do the kids do? The kids do this.
Oh, I never seen that one.
Yeah, they do it this way. This is like the youngins do it this way.
Well, I don't think my fingers can do that, but I saw the heart show up. You see that? That's kind of hella cool.
Yeah, that's because of your phone. You have the motion on there or whatever.
I don't know. I guess. Hey, learned something new today. Well, thank you, Kathy. I will see you in the chat.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everybody, have an amazing night. Now, I do say it in the evenings. I want you to rest peacefully and rise gracefully.
Oh, I like that.
Boom.